You know, it kind of shows how oblivious to the world I am when I'm streaming. Because when I got up and walked over to grab my sandwich, I heard this weird buzzing noise. I was like, what the? Sorry, it just got way louder. Oh, look at that. They're attacking me. Well, that's nice. Sized for goblins. Find somebody with metal armor. Looked kind of like it for a second. All right, let's check your helmets then. They're from the Hatred of Symmetry. That is very ironic. Well, let's give my dwarves a little bit of time to get inside. Let's make sure that this door is open, which it is. We do actually have a couple dwarves that worship the chinchilla now on that topic, Arkstrom. Materials delivery? Unfortunately, I don't see any whips. Oh, no, there's a few. I love that the volcano is draining. And I'm gonna get you patrolling that. I'm going to get you up here. Did you just drop a llama wool amulet? I mean, good luck. All right, so my Mark's dwarves are about to get to play target practice for a bit, and this dwarf is doing something. It appears that right off the bat, Digal here, the elite Mark's dwarf, is doing quite a bit of work. This goblin had a crossbow, no longer does, and now instead of having a crossbow, he simply has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steel bolts stuck in his body. So dude's full of bolts. It's turning into a pin cushion. A very good pin cushion. And now his guts are hanging out because we got 2 more dwarves that have joined in with the shooting. We got Baby Fem, Rigoth, as well as Digal, all firing. It appears that this goblin back here is also taking a couple shots. This, considering he says death is all around us, this is truly horrifying, and then gets hit by a copper bolt. So, you know, also he's freaking out because the goblin in front of him just died after getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts in his face, which frankly, quite effective, if I have to say. That is Nagoking, and let's see who actually got credited with it. Probably was one of you two. Probably you, actually, because you got credited with 2. That was a very unremarkable goblin. Wasn't even worth writing down their name in the annals of history. The dwarves continue to shoot, and more goblins are dropping their shields and weapons and freaking out as they strip naked because their clothes are literally getting shot off by the bolts. This goblin up here up front is vomiting as much as they're bleeding, which is quite impressive that a goblin has so much liquid inside of its body. The remainder of the goblin hordes are coming up slowly through the side entrance of the fortress and walking over the bridge slowly. But it appears that they're going to start having a rough time of things when they start seeing that all their friends are now bloody messes. We have dwarves over here on the right as well that are starting to fire down on an angle towards the goblins. Another goblin has fallen, and it seems that Golzru here is quite afraid after experiencing trauma because he saw a goblin die. I also would be. This dwarf over here doesn't feel anything after seeing a goblin die, but is afraid. This dwarf is also afraid. This dwarf is also afraid. This dwarf is also afraid. Says our time in the realm of enchantments is so brief, begone fear. The goblins continue to walk forward. And it appears that our most recent goblin to fall is Nagoso. Some of my dwarves are piecing out to go grab more ammunition, it appears. This dwarf up here is doing quite good work as well, it seems, after firing multiple steel bolts, hitting goblins in the right hand. And the wrong hand, too, probably. Got more dwarves up here also firing. Baby Fem, in fact, has probably had some pretty good shots herself. Firing a steel bolt that strikes the goblin crossbowman in the left foot, fracturing the bone. Makes walking difficult. Honestly, I'm quite impressed by how effective these are. I may actually make some more squads, especially because they don't need to be that brave. Like, it is good for them to be brave, obviously, but they don't need bravery as much as melee squads do. And also, I think I'm going to give my melee squads an opportunity to finish them off. I've been using the lava to finish them off, but I'm going to let them walk through, and then we're going to slaughter the rest of them with the melee dwarves. I'm actually going to pull this lever to lock them inside, because what's better than having a bunch of enemies is having a bunch of enemies with no way out. And from there, we can simply continue to witness. We've got Digal still kind of standing in a trusty spot down at the bottom, firing south, which is great because he's actually very satisfied now, remembering mastering crossbow. So this dwarf here is now a crossbow master. In fact, you know, sometimes we need to take good opportunities to name. There you go. You now have a dwarf. So this dwarf never fails to seek out the most stressful and even dangerous situations. Never becomes angry and is sloppy with his living space. Rarely jealous and accepts favors without developing a sense of obligation. Preferring to act as his current situation demands. He can get caught up in internal deliberations when action is necessary and lives a fast-paced life and enjoys the company of others. He easily falls in love or develops positive feelings, and he tries to do things correctly each time. He is trusting and he rarely is happy or enthusiastic. He is conflicted by this as he values parties and merrymaking in the abstract, occasionally overindulges and is troubled by this because he values self-control. He always scratches his head when he's trying to remember something and needs alcohol to get through the working day. Dreams of raising a family and personally sees life as unfair and doesn't mind it that way, and sees sacrifice as wasteful and foolish. Values self-control and sees competition as wasteful and silly. Has many close friends and they're all in the military. Look at that. And more goblins are continuing to get injured. Yeah, it's kind of neat. When they get super, like, damaged by crossbows, they tend to just drop their weapons, which I think is interesting. But they keep attacking. Like, you literally don't even have a weapon in your hand anymore, but you're attacking still. Yeah, and then all of these bodies in the middle. A lot of the crossbow dwarves or goblins tend to die the fastest to the crossbows. So they are using steel bolts. And they are slowly moving down as the upper carnage continues. And I also have to be really careful that I don't let them dodge into the lava. So I don't want them attacking until, like, the last possible moment. But this is the glut of military that we have down here. Most of them are fully decked out on steel. The ones that aren't are doing that by choice, or it's because, I don't know, they're just a dwarf like this that's like, who needs an actual weapon, right? Right, GM70? Who needs a weapon, right? Then down here, you know, we've got our silver whips, we got our lashers, we got our swords dwarves, and then, of course, at the back, the king. So we continue watching the violence being sprayed. These goblins have seen better days. This one is still injured. Like, are any of these not injured? Wow, they're all injured. Look at that. This is literally just going to be a cleanup crew. They're all at the very least injured. Most of their armor is, like, non-existent. They all have bolts stuck in them. That's actually crazy. Like, we're nullifying the effectiveness of this whole army, basically. The entirety of the remainder of this squads are going to move up here. So we're going to follow the king, who, by the way, is equipped with a steel battle axe, a steel shield, and a steel helm. Because I figured the king should probably wear, you know, his ceremonial robes and leather tunic instead of, you know, other things. So the king is running forward. The king already has a combat log too. King the Space Disco Fox is running forward, still hasn't actually entered into combat in any way. Jumping forwards. No injuries just yet. Still no kills. Has hacked at some goblins, though. Hacked at a goblin spearman in the lower body with a battle axe, tearing apart the muscle, and tearing apart the right kidney. An artery has been opened by the attack, and the king says, "Death, I'm not uneasy." The king stands up. Now, this is the part that I'm worried about. Is the how many are left. This part's going to be kind of concerning. This guy's getting unlifed. Because something just... Oh, you see a goblin pikeman fell in. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about my soldiers dodging. But if we look around, most of these goblins are pretty injured. So if the dwarves come running up here, I'm a little worried. Oh, sweet. They're backing up. Awesome. 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 That is exactly what... Oh. Well, Baka Glass, who's completely naked except for a spear, gloves, and boots, who's completely covered in goblin blood, books it forwards and is stabbing Zolok to death here. Seems to have done a pretty effective job at it and is now running at another goblin and begins stabbing away at that goblin. Now is running up onto the top level and continuing to stab, running directly towards the remainder of the goblins, flirting with death, and then walking away going, "Gruesome wounds! Big unfair." And I think that's all of them. A dwarven child was found dead. So a dwarven child didn't actually make it into the fort in time. That's a shame. Seems like they're all over here by the exit. This one's bleeding super heavily. Has 2 bolts in its upper body. Tobe Zen over here appears to have collided with one of the remaining goblins and is punching him in the body and making him split into gore. And Tobes comes running in with a shield, by the way. Just a shield. Actually, yeah, literally just a shield. Held in her right hand, she has an infection in her ankle. And she most recently says, "Gruesome wounds begun fear." And literally whacking them with shields. Climbs onto this one and is punching and whacking with shield. Literally hits this goblin in the hand with a steel shield, and the injured part explodes. The force twists the wrist. The goblin crossbowman strikes at the wrestler, but the shot is blocked. The wrestler strikes the goblin crossbowman in the upper arm with her steel shield, jamming the bone through the left shoulder and the muscle, shattering the shoulder bone. Then proceeds to strike the goblin crossbowman in the lower arm with her steel shield, fracturing the bone. The force twists the right elbow, tearing apart the muscle and bruising the bone, and tearing apart the muscle and bruising the bone. A ligament has been torn, and a tendon has been torn, and a goblin misses the elite wrestler. And the elite wrestler bites the goblin crossbowman in the leg, tearing the fat and bruising the muscle. Don't know how you did that with a helmet on, but okay. And then the wrestler strikes the goblin crossbowman in the upper body with her steel shield, bruising the muscle and the spine, then strikes the goblin in the lower body with her steel shield, bruising the muscle, and then bites them in the hand, bruising the muscle, through the wolf leather glove, latches on firmly, still biting while shaking the goblin crossbow, the goblin crossbowman around by the left hand on the right elbow, and an artery has been opened by the attack, and then proceeds to strike, continues shaking them around, and it's twisting them, and they're still just shaking, and then starts kicking him somehow while still shaking him because they're still biting them. And then the left elbow, which the force of like kicking them actually seems to be bending the elbow in a way that it shouldn't go, which is just horrible. The wrestler then strikes the goblin crossbowman with her steel shield, jamming the bone through the left wrist and shattering the left wrist's bone. The force twists the left knee and tearing apart the muscle and bruising the bone. The goblin's still missing them somehow. By the way, still biting. The wrestler then strikes the goblin crossbowman in the left lower lip with her steel shield, and the injured part explodes. Aw, poor lip. And then the wrestler then strikes them in the hand with the steel shield while still biting them, because I haven't broken the grip, and the goblin is having trouble breathing. Fuck me, I wonder why. The goblin is dead. And the other one bled out. So I think that's all of them. There is one goblin axeman left. They are not in the base, and they are probably leaving the map pretty quickly. They are very afraid after experiencing trauma, and they are moving very slowly. So I'm going to tell this squad to kill this goblin. I'm going to give these two a break, and I'm going to open the door.